What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Across the Pitch with myself, Dave Miller, and Jose Nunez to my left. Obviously, no Mike here tonight. He's got some work and other things behind the scenes going on, so we're going to leave him to that, and it's just going to be me and Jose tonight. First off, Jose, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Dave. It's nice to be back on the win column. It's nice to finally be scoring goals, albeit dribblers that go in from howlers by goalkeepers. I think we're okay with it. Just really excited to be here, and yeah, we're just letting Mike get caught up with life. I know I got myself caught up with life last week and was not available for the Miami FC recap. So life happens. Mike, thinking of you. Hopefully, this is just a weird time, and you just recharge for next week.
Exactly. I think again, sometimes life takes over. I mean, I was ill all of last week, so yeah. I mean, obviously, me and Jose now back. Putting our weight back over after missing last week. But again, sort of as you mentioned to the to the goal that the Union scored in the Chicago game, we'll jump onto in a sec. Sometimes you just take those early in the season, no matter how well you're playing. You just need that one instance of luck. And before we jump into the show and the review and the previews of what's another busy week ahead, we'll go to our sponsors. And the first one is a long-time sponsor of the show, Statement Games. So check out Statement Games at statementgames.com for a fun-free new look at fantasy sports. You can sign up at the link of www.statementgames.com. And then the next sponsor is Doan Distillery, which is located in the Trolley Barn Public Market in Quakertown. So visit doandistillery.com to check out their wide variety of drinks and spirits. The next one is Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant, Allentown, PA, at 6750 Iroquois Trail, which is number 7 in Allentown, PA, 18104. I know, Jose, you enjoy listening to me read
I love it. I love hearing you say Iroquois and Joaquin and all these things. I love it. You're my favorite Brit.
Okay. So again, they serve Italian cuisine, including pizza, pasta, burgers, sandwiches, and more. Which as you just said, as a Brit, that's everything that I enjoy eating. So I mean, it's the perfect place to go. So it's available for pickup or delivery. So order today at vinnyspizzasrestaurant.com. And obviously as well, stuff to the grills, which is also at the same location, number 5 in 5 Allentown, PA, with the same address, offering a unique twist on the traditional sandwich shop, homemade hot and cold sandwiches, salads, appetizers, and baked goods, all available for all catering events, family functions, and more. So head to stufftothegrills.com for the daily specials. And last off, we have to show some love to the AATSportsNetwork.com/shop, where you can get all Across the Pitch gear, all AAT Sports Network gear from everything, really. So, I mean, go check it out. Johnny does some great work with the designs of the T-shirts and all the other gear and everything that he does there. So make sure to check it out if you're interested in getting Across the Pitch shirt or anything else associated with the website or what Johnny's done throughout his time for the page. But I mean, cool. That's the sponsors out the way. Of course, last week was a busy week. The Union, it was 2 games on paper. You think they should win, but I think, to be honest, they responded well, having that setback in Miami to come out of those 2 games without conceding a goal, to beat Chicago, and they were still in the tie after Alianza. I didn't see the Alianza game. It was one of those games where I was like hoping to avoid the result till I could get up and watch it, and then I saw it was 0-0, and I was like, I'm not really going to waste 2 hours of my day watching that. So, but yeah, on the face of it, I feel like for early on in the season, I think it's a good week.
Yeah, it's an interesting week, that's for sure. I mean, the Alianza game, it's to me, and I mentioned it on Twitter over the past week, and honestly, even beyond that, obviously, so much time has gone on since we all got together. But that Alianza game, it was interesting because of the parties involved, right? We had a super organized Philadelphia Union squad with a lot of new faces, some faces that have only played with one another in preseason, and this was their very first appearance for the Union, let alone with some mainstays such as Kai Wagner and Andre Blake, and I think Elliott was the 3rd starter that was used from the game prior. So Lowe, Perea, Torres, just an incredible shakeup from Jim that we were expecting, but frankly, I was not expecting that heavy of a shakeup. I think it was welcomed by a lot of us, and I was surprised, that's for sure. So what was interesting is, you have someone like Jesus Bueno just get his chance for the first time since the COVID game in 3 years and have to be relegated to play on that field. Where a 5-yard pass is just going down your chest. Nothing was controlled. Everything was very much a benchmark ball, right? High and long balls that you just hope you get some luck. But Dave, you didn't miss much outside of how much it complicated things coming to tomorrow.
I think again, I'm pretty sure that the away goals rule still counts in the CCL. So I mean, again, I just sort of said complicated things for tomorrow. I think I've got a good idea of what you mean in regards to that. But of course, before we go into that, we'll look at the Chicago game. Obviously, it was a weird game. It was a really weird game, and I think if the Union had played a better team or a more clinical team, they could easily have been 2 or 3 goals down at half time. I think for me, that first half, what was the most worrying was, of course, Andre Blake. The biggest talking point of the game was Andre Blake's injury, and we'll move on to that in a second. But I mean, just how shaky the team looked inside their own penalty area. I mean, the Union almost conceded. Rafael Chicos almost scored with the first the first shot of the game. I think we all sort of said the group chat. We thought it stuck into the bottom corner somehow, and they got away with that. And there was another couple of instances, even with the one where Andre Blake caught the ball and actually got injured and hurt his groin. A more clinical team probably takes advantage of that and scores because Andre caught the ball, sort of caught up with Jack Elliott, dropped the ball, and there were just a few moments. And again, I think there was another ball that came across and invaded everybody and went to the Chicago player at the back post who had the shot blocked. But it's sort of again, those instances that don't really fill you with confidence defensively. I mean, especially after the opening 2 games. It sounds weird to say with that Miami game. The Union defensively weren't tested that much. They looked very solid at the back in terms of the back four and the shape that they had. Because, I mean, I could probably count with 2 or 3 fingers the amount of times that Miami not only breached the penalty area but had a threatening moment. Both their goals came from a long range distance and were very good goals. But of course,
Thanks,
Marina.
Val.
Absolutely
no,
not.
She's not wrong. I mean, listen, that 0-0 game against Alianza was just really telling that we have extremely tactical players and skilled players too. Where I've played rec league soccer in better fields than that Alianza field in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, or even here in my backyard in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. That field was something else. But back to the Chicago points, Dave, you're right. How shaky we looked, even during that loss to Miami. We lost to them to one a really speculative shot that weird that Andre did not get to. I don't want to say that was just sort of a standard shot that he should have saved. It had a nice angle, bodies in front of him. I don't think there were any deflections, but nonetheless, I give the guy credit, right? I think you had predicted he was going to score, so kudos to you for Miami. But then, you get beat by a worldie, guy traps it with his chest and just takes a stab at it and beats Andre. So, 2 goals outside of the 18. I think probably the very first time that Andre has been beaten from outside the 18 twice in one game. Certainly not the first time he's ever been beaten from outside the 18. I think of David Villa lobbing it over him at NYCFC from 40, 50 yards out. So there's that. But this Chicago game was just so bizarre. First and foremost, I give kudos to anybody who went. I was not able to go due to my son's birthday party. He turns 3 tomorrow, but we had a celebration yesterday, which is still kind of wrapping my head around having a 3-year-old and soon to be a 9-month-old. So there's some craziness going around here, and I won't be there tomorrow for it because it's his actual birthday. But kudos to the crowd for being there. Audible, sure, maybe on the TV a little bit, but just a really bizarre game in that of, right from the get-go, a what should be a pretty tame Chicago team considering the injuries and the bodies that were not available right away, like a Mueller, who I thought was going to start, but Mike in hindsight had messaged in our little group chat and said, no, he's actually probably down and still recovering from the previous game, let alone just being able to play a full 90. But I don't want to say that game should have been a walk in the park because of some dangerous players that Chicago has, but we certainly did not do ourselves any favors in, the injury to Andre Blake. Again, just complicates things for tomorrow and
Yeah,
for the foreseeable future. Obviously, no report as of right now. I know that the union have been asked about it. He was Andre was getting an MRI, but nothing has come back yet, or they weren't, divulging any information right now. But yeah, I have a hard time describing what we witnessed for 90 minutes with the Chicago game. I don't know how you feel about it. Obviously, I think just as confused as I was by watching it.
yeah. I think again it's a nice segue with the Andre Blake thing. 'Cause I think that was, apart from obviously the result, the main talking point of the game on Saturday night was the fact that Andre Blake came out injured with a groin injury. And I sort of said to Mike almost immediately, I think I said in the group chat, I think the first thing that my mind went to is it's definitely a month at least he's out for, because I mean, with groin injuries, especially with the goalkeeper, like just in general, the sport of football, it's so difficult. 'Cause, I mean, having to run in straight lines, having to move around so quickly, having to move in different directions. For a goalkeeper, you have to rely on your legs a lot to get the spring up and being able to jump up and being able to feel the impact, taking long kicks and things like that. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how long he's out for. I think I read something earlier that, let me try and find a tweet. It was something in regards to the to Andre. It's serious. It's less serious. Here we go. Jonathan Tannewell tweeted just under an hour ago. It's a groin injury is less serious than feared. It's a grade 1 adductor strain. So yeah. So fingers crossed. He could be back within a month or so. And hope it seems. But again, it's such a frustrating thing. And I think looking back now, could we perhaps be a bit frustrated at the fact that we let Matt Freeze go, considering he's gone to another rival just to sit on their bench. Again, there's no disrespect. I think Jim's obviously he has to have a lot of confidence in Joe Bendick because he's an experienced goalkeeper. So yeah, I mean, he should hopefully provide adequate, cover, because I think, I mean, he's not really disappointed in the last few games. I can remember him playing for the Union. But again, I guess the last time he really played consistently was in 2018 for Orlando. So I mean, again, as you sort of said, it makes things very awkward for the team now going into these next few games, knowing that you don't have that safety comfort or that safety blanket, that reserve behind you of knowing, okay, if we get beat, Andre's here behind us, or Dre's here behind us to bail us out, which he has done so often. I think again he made a good save from Kasper Jaberko's header, which
Yes.
I think was the final straw for him, unfortunately. But yeah, I think again it was a weird game because I mean, very feisty. And I think again we sat in and we listened to the manager's press conference, and I can understand.
All three of us. I
Yeah,
was so happy to see the three of us. I think we were the three of us and two random people listening to the press conference. I was amazed that more people were not on the Zoom. I'm sure maybe they were in person, and that's fine. But yeah, no, go on, Dave. Sorry, just
yeah,
the press conference was interesting, and we can talk about it a little bit more on the Chicago side as well.
yeah. Because obviously, again, I think I can understand the frustration from their manager's side in terms of perhaps not the fouls. I think the referee was very. I didn't think it was a great referee. I think it was he made the game very stop start a lot for blowing the whistle a lot. But I could understand the Chicago manager's frustration, perhaps with the yellow card side of things, how easy it was to award yellow cards to certain players when perhaps certain things weren't yellow cards. I think Jose Martinez and, to be fair, Herbert in the first half got very lucky with them both going head to head and clashing with their heads.
Hmm.
On another day, VAR could have picked that up. But yeah, I think again that first half and that 15-20 minute spell from around when Andre went off injured to the half time was really sort of the spell in that first half, which the yellow cards started to really rack up, and then laid the foundations down for the second half, which again the Union won it late, but again Herbert's got sent off for a very dangerous tackle on Kai Wagner. It was late. There was no complaints. I think even, to be fair, Chicago's manager said I can't complain about the second yellow card. It was a late dangerous challenge. It was high, and I think the commentators even said themselves on another day, if he wasn't on the yellow card, the referee might have got the red card out anyway for it. It was very dangerous. It was quite a dangerous tackle where had the leg gone in with more of a different angle, we could be talking about another massive injury or another big injury.
Yeah, probably a few months out, honestly, with how dangerous and how high that foot was. And what's really interesting too is, I, I think Fabian was, asked before, I think earlier in the week about his experience and his time under Jim and what that was like. And he had nothing but great things to say about Jim. So I like to think that the relationship ended amicably. So I don't I'm not sure, but man, that it was a fiery game, that's for sure, and no pun intended with Chicago. But to the manager's point, us being fortunate enough to listen into the press conferences due to our work here with AAT, um, I always get frustrated, and I don't know how it works in the MLS. Obviously, there are fines for saying things in different sports and different leagues whatsoever, but he was not shy to lean on the referee being one of, if not the main reason that the game was slanted. And I think I'm not quoting him. I don't feel confident enough in saying that, but the gist that I got out of it, and maybe it was just, I'm sure he was frustrated, and I was frustrated from what I watched for 90 minutes and the howler of a goal that it took for us to win. But I never
Yeah,
like it when a manager leans on that, right? It's the referee, I would say, was, yes, like you described, happy with the whistle and happy to yellow card on certain things and not others. But for the Chicago manager to really lean on the side of the story that the referee was really, I think he said something along the lines of, like, it's difficult to win here, but it's even more difficult when you have the referee helping out the other side in a way. He alluded to something like that, which to me was kind of disappointing, especially for, I don't think he's a first year coach, but certainly first year with Chicago, if I recall. So it's just an interesting comment that he had there. But yeah, I mean, we can continue to fast forward. Obviously, Andre's injury, we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. I like to think that Mr. Bendick, or I can't imagine we throw in our third string keeper for this matchup that's pivotal for us to survive and
yeah.
move on to the next round. That he will see Trent, I believe it's his name. But yeah, no, where do you want to go from here?
So of course, I mean, Holden Trent is the third choice goalkeeper's name, but I think the weird thing was obviously the Union again, as we sort of alluded to at the top of the show. The game was won. Joaquin Torres with the match winner as the game was actually heading into stoppage time. I think, as you sort of alluded to, it was a very poor goal. I think, and first look at it, like it took a bit of deflection that may have wrong foot the goalkeeper a bit, but again, it did bounce in front of the goalkeeper as well. I think Chris Brady did bounce just in front of him, but again, it was an absolute howler because the ball sort of bounced off him, went into the back of the net. Sort of was like perhaps his view was obstructed, and the bounce at the last second didn't help. But I mean, he did look a bit shaky throughout the game. And I think again, there was a moment of fortune that perhaps the Union might believe that they deserved. Because I think the one concerning thing for which you discussed, go more in depth about the goal for me, the most concerning thing for me throughout this game was that this Union team looked a lot like the team from the middle of 2021, where they were afraid to shoot. They were always trying to find the perfect pass, trying to score the perfect goal, as opposed to just having a go and taking the risk. I mean, like, in that situation in the second half, when Gazdag tried to cushion the ball, headed down to Bedoya on the edge of the 6 yard box, that season's Daniel Gazdag either tries to volley that into the back of the net or tries to head it in. And perhaps it might be rust or perhaps some nerves early in the season. But I mean, the Union are trying to walk the ball in the goal. They're not trying to be as aggressive, and that was perhaps what was quite nice to see from Joaquin Torres was the aggressiveness to try and take the ball on and shoot and, going, okay, if they're going to give me the chance, I'll do it. But yeah, there's been a couple of similarities in these last couple of league games, especially where the Union have looked a bit like the 2021 Union in terms of their attacking play, when they look scared, they don't want to take the risks, or they're trying to play perfect. And to be fair to Jim, he's alluded to that in the press conference after the game and said, look, we're trying to look for that perfect pass, or we're trying to do something else, when really we should just stick to the basics, make the simple 5 yard pass, because it's just so often when. And again, I think perhaps the team is trying to rely too much upon Kai Wagner and trying to go through him too much and trying to go through Gazdag, when Bush has been quite noticeable the last 2 games, especially all this season. The Union have had so much joy in that right hand side where Bizo and Bedoya are. They don't utilise it enough. We've seen it on quite a few occasions now, where a player's got the ball and they're running towards the middle. Instead of getting their head up and looking right to see Bedoya and Egg as a space or whatever, they're carrying on with the head inside. They're trying to go left. They're trying to go towards goal, as opposed to, trying to open the game up more. And I think that's one frustrating aspect of this team's games so far in the season. I don't want to sound too picky or too negative, because we're only 3 league games into the season. But it's just the things that made this team so successful last season. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's I keep on saying interesting, but it's really interesting that that performance was just a tale of two halves, right? I mean, I look at the stats from the game, and it was certainly a game of two halves. We had 45% possession the first half, and obviously the red card certainly helps that. But from there on, we had over 50 some percent possession in the second half. So it's certainly a tale of two halves, and um, just wondering if it feels this way, if we're probably the worst team. The worst team in the league while a man up, because it certainly feels that way, right? It's not very often that we actually take advantage of these situations. I keep on going back to this, and I think Mike sort of pokes fun at this in a way, and in a fine way of, I always refer back to that weird tie that we had against New York Red Bull that could have that more or less decided the Shield, let alone home field advantage for us, where we were a man up and somehow we let Red Bull score a goal at home to tie up while we were a man up. So
Yeah,
I know Jim also mentioned, Joaquin is just one of those players that, can help you unlock defenses, especially when you have a man up, right? And you think about, okay, they're going to pack it in. Who is going to be that player that can really help us unlock this wall of bodies? And as much as we comment of a howler that goal was, you have to have the confidence to take a shot, let alone take a shot and get it on target. Earlier on, I think same thing. He tried to curl one into the upper corner, if I recall, maybe a few minutes earlier, and he missed really, really poorly. A really, really poor shot that ended up going into the Sons of Ben. I think near Jared Nisley's. He's a capo. I think really almost hit him in a way. I think, but ultimately Joaquin decided to, I'm going to give it one more go. And at the dying moments too, that takes some confidence, right? And
yeah,
in a way too, takes some comfort to know that if I make this decision at this point in the game, which is at the embers of the game, what is my team going to think about me, or how is my team going to react to me doing this? And luckily he has been encouraged to do so. So I think it's a good sign in a way. I know that's what I would have thought, and certainly have thought in my time playing collegiate and even high school soccer of, the decisions I make, what are the reactions going to be from my teammates, and for Joaquin to be comfortable in doing that is great. But you're right. Jim mentioning we need to get back to the simple things, to the basic things, is exactly what this team needs. I think about the DC United route that we had against them, right? A lot of going down to the baseline, passing it across, getting a tap in, Julian Carranza or somebody else. Finding feed. And I think one comment I made to my wife during that Chicago game, and Dave, I'm sure you noticed this, and I know I'm fairly certain Mike, super producer Mike in the background today, would also have noticed, every single pass, despite being a man up or not a man up first or second half, was either at the body or behind the body of the receiver, where there were often some situations, like I think in Bizo, that guy's got wheels. You got to put that in front of him a bit, right? You can't
yeah,
just hit his body. It's those little things. And my one friend who was staying over as well, he mentioned, it's those passes that really tell the difference between a team that's in sync, an elite team, or a team that is just getting its bearings, getting sorted early on in the season. And that's exactly what we're doing. And let's make no mistake, we don't want to be playing our best soccer right now, right? We
yeah,
want that to happen in the playoffs. So albeit this really bizarre new model of playoffs, we want to be waiting to play our best soccer then. But onwards and upwards, Val, I saw your comment. Thank you. Second year for that coach with Chicago. Thank you so much for that.
yeah,
But as Mike mentions about Alianza, it's gonna be a tough battle, especially with them coming into a very, very cold Pennsylvania, and what that might bring to them.
yeah. And of course, I think again, nice segue there into obviously Mike sort of saying the one thing that worries him about not just Tuesday, but in terms of the fact the Union do struggle to play a man up. And I think sometimes again, perhaps you see it a lot in okay, so Mike again just with a little program in that there. It's on VIX Plus, which I have no idea what that is, but
No
that's where you can
clue.
watch the game. But it's on it's on the it should be live to stream on the CONCACAF YouTube channel as well, which is what I usually watch the CCL games. So again, if you don't have that, It saves you have to try and find a dodgy stream. Try the YouTube channel, 'cause that's how I've managed to watch CCL games in the past. And I think it
Yeah.
does work this year.
Yeah,
'Cause
Dave. Let's just mention to anybody listening or watching. Stay tuned to our social media. Myself, Dave, Mike. As soon as we find a way to get this game on, we'll make sure to tweet it out. Mike, let's make let's make super producer Mike. Let's make a note to do that tomorrow. As soon as we have a way to stream it, that is the
yeah,
most. Uh, oh, yeah. Mike already bought VIX Plus, so
yeah,
if there's a way that we can make sure that we share that with people tomorrow, just double checking the YouTube platform as well as
yeah.
I know I
The,
use YouTube TV and whatnot.
yeah.
Sometimes it comes along with it.
So I think YouTube, this is the general CONCACAF, all the whatever it should work. So I've used it in the past, and I was like, hovering around it, just trying to see if it worked again this year for me. And again, it had the Austin game live there to watch ready. So I mean, things should be okay. But yeah, again, obviously looking, as Mike sort of said, struggling to play a man up, and I think we see it a lot. I think in England as well, I see it a lot. A lot of teams that have a counter-attacking style of play, which, or like the teams that don't like to be in control of possession, they struggle to play at home a lot, and they do much better on the road because they can't. Because when they're at home, they're under more pressure to be on top of the game, and that perhaps is something that the Union perhaps struggle with when they are in control of possession or have to dominate possession. Is the fact that it sort of disrupts their actual style of play and their actual game. It happened to my team, Gillingham, a few years ago, where we were really, really good away from home, but we couldn't play at home because we were expected to be the team that was in control. And I think you do see that quite often. So I mean, that might be something for Jim to look at as the season goes. But again, of course, Alianza in midweek, and El Salvador and opponents. Again, Union come into this game off the back of a 0-0, and I think it does sort of. So again, they have to win the tie to go through. I believe. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are away goals. There are away goals in CCL, I think. So again, that's one aspect the Union have to be careful of, because as soon as Alianza score one, the Union have to score two. So if the Union keep a clean sheet and keep them at bay, hopefully, fingers crossed, it shouldn't be a too difficult of an afternoon. Whether we see as heavy of a rotation this time, because I mean, they didn't have enough to travel as much. They've had they've had a fair few days in Philly, a week or so in Philly now to rest up and not have to travel as much. So I mean, fingers crossed, they come in with perhaps a bit of a stronger team. I'd like to see UR start from the off, because I think, again, as you saw, both you and Mike alluded to, sort of those Chris Donovan chances last week. If a player like Uar's in that situation, he probably scores one or two, and he's a player right now that is perhaps lacking a bit of confidence. He hasn't reached the standards that he was at when he got into the groove last year. So I mean, that's a player that we're hoping that perhaps this could kickstart the season with a goal or two.
Yeah, it's I think and I I don't know how to say it, man. I try to stay off social media, certainly during away games, just because I'm at home, or this year, now that my boys are getting older, I'm able to travel more as I make my way to New York, DC, New England, Foxborough, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
to watch. I'll certainly be there. But home games, I certainly don't pay attention, as I'm there typically in 140 with the people, not in the press box with the bourgeois. But it's Donovan had a rough go, but I also can't fault the kid, because that field was near unplayable. And I hate to make excuses and give a professional an easy out, but the way the ball was bouncing that game was just tough. And again, you think about the game plan that we had to go into effect with, of just long balls from Kai all the way up to Donovan to hopefully just make it an easy tap in or a mistake from a defender, etc. Just did not bode any confidence. And could Mikel have done better? Maybe. I don't know. He relies on his pace, so maybe. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Val with a great comment. I was actually just about to mention that tomorrow, high of 39. And I'm sure with these wins tomorrow, I don't know what it translates for you, Dave, in kilometers, but it's going to be windy. Very
yeah,
windy is what it translates to. So I can't imagine anybody going tomorrow will have a very comfortable game standing or sitting. But huge kudos. I would be there if it weren't my kid's third birthday. So kudos to everybody going. I certainly cannot expect that we'll have 18,000 plus. Maybe I'm wrong.
I never know. I mean, the local El Salvador support in Philadelphia might turn up. I mean, again, like we saw with the Club America game last year, I think it was a massive.
Those are two different monsters, though, Dave. One's a global brand. The other one is a slightly different. But I hear you. I know what you're saying.
I think again, perhaps as well, maybe if your expectation is that there might be less fans there tomorrow, there might be more tickets available, cheaper tickets maybe. So I mean, perhaps you might get some fans, first-time fans or non-regular fans going to the game tomorrow if there are tickets still available.
Hit me up if you're a Union fan and need a cheap ticket, because I can't use my two. That's for sure.
But I was going to say that it's, but yeah, I think it's going to be tomorrow. We've sort of alluded to a couple of times. Right, it's going to be a tough game tomorrow. I don't think. Perhaps to be fair to Alianza, I think a lot of us probably thought that even with a B team, the Union should comfortably win. The fact that they came out with a draw, I think we'll be happy with. But I think they'll go there. They'll come to Philadelphia to hold on for a point, to sit deep, try and catch the Union on the counter attack, and try and punish the Union. So I think that'll be something that Jim will obviously have to prepare for. How many changes we see? I'm not really sure. With a road trip to Montreal coming up at the weekend, does Jim approach it like he did last week? Obviously last week, where he makes 8 changes. Does he go with that route again, or does he perhaps make 5 or 6? We see Quinn, Torres, Damien Lowe, Harry on the right back, maybe Matt Real starting to give Kai Wagner a break. Do you know what I mean? Maybe perhaps Leon Flack and Nuar both start, because if they only played an hour on Saturday, you can take Jose out and drop Leon into a more defensive position. There are obviously options that Jim can go down tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be as heavily of a rotated squad as it was away from home out in San Salvador. But you bring up some interesting names there and some interesting pairings, right? And maybe some even positions of interest to me where we talk about Leon and maybe his lack of offensive play or not great offensive play, that maybe it better suits him, and he's stuck behind the best, probably number 6 in the entire country right now for the MLS. So it's interesting to see what Jim will come up with. But to your point about what does Jim do? Let's not forget what happened to Austin. Away from home with a B squad, losing 3-0 in Haiti. I think it was in Haiti. I know they were playing a Haitian team. I just don't know if it was in Haiti or not. Now Austin has a mountain to climb at home with a Haitian squad that had to, I think, as of today, sign a few players that were former pros. Thank you, Val. Fox Soccer Plus, CONCACAF Champions League, Philadelphia Alianza at 8. So if you have Fox Soccer Plus, that's one way to watch it as well. Yeah, I wonder what Jim comes up with. I think this is a competition that's important to him. So maybe a better pitch, albeit a cold one, that a little bit firmer, I'm sure, suits the Union a little bit more. But we also don't have our brick wall back there. So what does that do mentally for the defenders, especially those that don't typically play and having to get used to a new keeper, let alone mentally knowing that the best goalkeeper in the MLS, and I'll say it, probably going to be for the 4th time this year if he gets healthy quick. You don't have that behind you. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about how do you handle your game tomorrow on a cold evening in Chester. It'll be really fascinating to watch, but I really do hope we come up top. I come on top. I hope Jesus Bueno gets another chance on a field that's respectable or to the quality of his play. I really do think that he could do some serious damage tomorrow with the right people in front of him, finding Torres, who I think is going to be a lock-in to play tomorrow. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Carranza plays as well, and maybe it's a mix. And Donovan had his chance and had a tough game, but we'll see. I'm really intrigued to see what we come up with tomorrow.
I think, again, it could possibly be a change of system, which we haven't seen this year. But for me personally, I would be disappointed because I'm working tomorrow night. So what I'll probably end up doing is going in incognito mode, ignore the game, and then watch it when I get in from work. yeah, I think the big thing tomorrow is just going to be ensuring that they win. I don't, but you know, make it comfortable. But you know what I mean. Not trying to disrespect Alianza. If they can win comfortably, and they can start putting in important players. Like a Mikel and a Leon Flack after 60 minutes, 65 minutes. Give them a good amount, some good minutes, and then. But yeah, who knows? Perhaps Jim goes with the exact same lineup that drew 0-0 and he just tries to complete wrench in the works. But I think, again, it's just important for me. I need to see who I start. I think, against no disrespect to Alianza, perhaps a bit more of an inferior opposition, you're going to give the guy who's supposed to be a talisman an opportunity to get off the mark for the season, to score a couple, maybe score a goal or two, and get him in the groove, get him in the rhythm, because again, for strikers, I understand, perhaps you can understand the fact that he hasn't done anything for 60 minutes against Chicago. But again, it's difficult for a striker when you're only playing 60 minutes, 55, 60 minutes every week to really have an impact. Because sometimes you've got pace like Mikel does. When the game becomes more stretched, and even if it is 0-0, the game starts to become more stretched. The opposing defenders, they get tired of legs. That's when your pace really does work. I mean, you only get 60 minutes to try and make an impact on the game. And we did sort of see Kenny got caught offside a couple of times, but there was space in there to attack. And that was probably the most disappointing thing for me on Saturday night, was the fact that Jim took Ua off whilst chasing a goal. It was really, in my opinion, Torres came on and scored the winning goal. But I think if you looked at it in the debate, at the moment in time, it feels like a negative substitution, taking out a striker and bringing on perhaps an attacking midfielder in the game and then sort of having somewhat limiting what you have got up front and who you can aim for in the box. Because again, the team got into some good crossing positions in the second half, and you literally just keep crossing the ball to Carranza against 2, 3, 4 defenders, and it's sort of like, wow, why are we playing with so much width when really we should be trying to work the ball inside?
Yeah, and you're to your point of bringing on Torres. I think he just brings albeit an attacking midfielder, he has that ability to just shift his hips the right or the left and just make somebody faint a little bit and just find that little space, especially when we were men up. And I continue to go back to the comparisons that I'm making mentally of him and El Sino, right? Just having that X factor of just being able to dance on the ball, dance near the ball, and just throw off people and maybe draw extra attention, especially after his first his first touch against Columbus and all the attention it got, and almost too much attention for my liking. I almost wanted him to be a better kept secret so no one could game plan against him and it just be another surprise. So yeah, I'm really, really hopeful that everything goes well tomorrow, and I hoping for the best, especially as we ship off to Montreal, a team that again has had a mass exodus between coaches and players and sales and the team trying to find its own identity, I think, over the last couple of years with rebrandings as well. It'll be a really fascinating game to watch as well, depending on how well Tuesday goes.
Yeah, and of course, Montreal are another team that have started the season poorly and have actually lost all 3 league games. But the interesting one is the fact they've played all 3 league games on the road this year, but they haven't scored yet, which is possibly, how to put it, a very big red herring, something that the Union will probably need to watch out for this weekend, so they don't get caught out by a team that not only haven't they scored, but will be perhaps looking to get their first win of the season. So it could be a potential trap game for the Union there. Something that they will need to watch out for, because again, as we sort of said, Montreal looking for their own identity, a massive overhaul, not just in the manager, but the entire playing squad. Of course, Joaquin Torres will be playing potentially against his former team. And again, it's going to be a tough test. Anytime you go on the road in the MLS, it's going to be a tough game. You're going to have to watch out for your opponent. So fingers crossed, the Union can come out of there unscathed and hopefully on the end of the right result.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
And of course, as well, sort of looking at the game, I think again, we're sort of stuck in the same predicament we were in a couple of weeks ago, really, where we can't really predict the lineup until we see what happens in the CCL in midweek. But for you, Jose, before we wrap up the show, of course, Montreal sort of when you're looking at their sort of league form this season, they've not won a game, they've not scored. For you, is that something that you could probably look at as not just a Union fan, but the Union and be like, we can take confidence from this, or do you perhaps because a bit more concerned like me of a fan that has seen these sort of things before and is a fan of a team that is prone to falling to these sort of teams?
I you never want to be a team's first win, especially after losing three in a row, right? So
Yeah,
I feel like it almost feels like a trap game in a way too, right? Where are we going to be their first win at home? While they're at home. I also go back to the game that they played against Miami, who beat us 2-0. So Mike and I wax poetic about it. We both thought the Montreal could have had won that game. A couple of mistakes by the Miami keeper, which obviously did not happen against us, or not as often, or not as close to his own net. So Montreal, I think, is a dangerous team. I wouldn't look past them just yet as we think about, first taking care of business on Tuesday, and then honestly, you're right. It's impossible to predict the lineups for tomorrow, let alone for Saturday, because so much is riding on what happens the first 60 minutes of Tuesday to dictate who comes off. And I'm thinking 5 subs again, right? Is that what the
yeah,
Champions League is? Who comes off in 5 subs? During the three windows, substitution windows that are allotted to the teams, we could have an easy 3-0 lead on Tuesday and then make a mass exodus of starters for substitutes, or we could be playing all 90 and just bringing in faces that we weren't expecting to see on the field, like a Julian Carranza, or having to bring on a Glesnes, or having to bring some other faces like a Martinez to come in and shore up things, being 1-up after scoring in the 89th or the 80th minute.
yeah,
So we're on a wait and see game right now, and I know Jim's not looking past Tuesday, but it's hard not to start trying to think, what are the different scenarios here?
yeah. I know exactly. I think as you sort of said, it's a game. Not just you can't really look past Alianza again, the unknown, but also I mean it's the CCL. I mean anything can happen. As we sort of saw with the Austin result last week, getting beat 3-0. But again, of course, I mean Montreal have their own threats as well. Romel Kyoto is probably their star man, or sort of their talisman. He's got a good goal record for Montreal, and he's played in the MLS for 6 years now. This is his 6th or 7th year in the MLS. He's no mug. He scored, he's almost scored 50 goals. So again, he's going to be a player that the team will have to watch out for. And I mean, before we close up the show, we'll give our score prediction. But I think, for Mike's betting with the boys segment that he likes to do
Yeah.
before every week, I think Mike, I think for this week, what we'll probably do is we'll delay it and we'll give you our predictions in midweek after this Alianza game, because I don't feel confident making a prediction while not knowing what sort of how Jim will approach the games. So, but I think right now this is an unofficial prediction. I'm going to go 2-1 to the Union.
Wait, did you say for Alianza 2-1?
So 2-1. Actually, no, this is for Montreal. Sorry, so 2-1
Okay.
for Montreal. But for tomorrow, I'm going to go confident. I'm going to go big. 3-0 Philadelphia.
Okay, yeah, I'm feeling a 3-1 Philadelphia tomorrow, just because of maybe the rotation again, just some new players playing for the first time at home,
Yeah,
which should yield some comfort. But we also know how uncomfortable we're all going to feel at all set pieces against us with no Andre Blake behind us. So I can only imagine that, multiplied by 7 when you're actually on the field.
yeah,
So 3-1. But for the Montreal game, I think it's going to be another 1-0, and it's going to be another dicey 1-0 win against Montreal, and it's going to take another, not howler, but it's going to take another goal that we're going to think, okay, that was scrappy. We still have
yeah.
some work to do on the offensive side, and it's not going to be Ua, it's not going to be Carranza, it's not going to be Gastag. I think it's going to be another awkward shot by Leon Flock going in.
Yeah. All right, so Mike's predictions for tomorrow. So, of course, we're going to give our unofficial predictions now, and then Mike will do his Bet with the Boys video segment later in the week with what we actually think will happen. Mike's going to go for 2-0 tomorrow night against Alianza and a 1-1 draw against Montreal. And I'm pretty sure Mike has Carranza scoring against Montreal. So, again, I think tomorrow is going to be a big one. I think, in a weird way, tomorrow is going to perhaps set how the rest of the season looks really. Because I think again, if the Union get beat tomorrow and they get eliminated, there's not many Tuesday night games that this team has to look towards. I mean, it could possibly see them take more of a focus on the Open Cup, maybe. Obviously, with
And
the
that's
Leagues Cup being in
yeah.
the break in the middle of the summer, what the hell's going on with that?
Yeah, US Open Cup, I think some preliminary matches starting in 7 or 8 days. I know that there's a couple of teams near me that are competing. The Westchester
Oh,
Predators, I think, are one of them. I could be
crikey.
wrong, but I know that there's some soccer going on in my area that I want to go watch that's actually more sanctioned than just like amateur, adult soccer or semi-pro soccer. So it's the US Open Cup is certainly winding up here in the next couple of days.
I think again, it's obviously as you sort of said, the local teams are sort of playing their final game. So, but again, I think it's going to be another big week for the Unions, another busy week. A week that we're busy, but don't worry, we'll make sure that we have you guys covered with all full content. I believe Mike should be covering the game tomorrow. I don't want to 100% say that because I'm working, so I won't be able to. Mike's covering the game tomorrow. Perfect. I'll be able to cover the game on Saturday and follow Jose because I'm sure either tomorrow night or ahead of the game on Friday, Jose will have the press conferences sorted for you if he's available. So yeah, of course we've got everything, all things Union covered heading up into this week. But make sure you give AAT Sports a follow. Give myself a follow at Dave Jesse Miller. Give Jose a follow at Jose Nunez 91, and also give Mike Barrera a follow, who has been super producing tonight at Barrera1323 on Twitter and on TikTok. If you would like to see some shortened clips from the show, perhaps if you've joined us late and you've missed some of the show, check Mike out on TikTok. He likes to break down the show and get some different segments or different parts of the show or clips of the show that he finds interesting. And he also has his betting of the boys segment on there as well. So if you're looking for some betting advice, or if you're just looking, for some fun score predictions, not betting advice, fun score predictions.
Yes.
Even if you just want to see what we think could happen, and you're just a fan of looking at betting odds getting put together, make sure you give Mike a follow for that. And as Mike sort of said, some of the TikTok exclusive clips, there are some TikTok exclusive clips because the video sizes are too big for Twitter. But yeah, make sure you give us a follow. That's just how much we talk, Jose. But
yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like it's an Elon problem, right? We just gotta write to Elon, make the video files allowance a little bit larger.
But of course, again, as I say, it's another big weekend for the Union. Make sure you give everyone a follow, give all the platforms a follow. Again, it's NFL free agency, the draft's coming up. AAT Sports has got you covered with the draft. Johnny does a great job with that. Johnny, Adam Mack, those guys do a great job with the draft over there. So make sure you give those guys a follow, give the page a follow. And again, thank you very much for tuning in. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Union come out with 2 wins out of 2 this week. And then we'll hopefully see you next Monday.
Let's hope so.
Fingers crossed. Enjoy your week, guys, and go Union. Dupe.
Go Union. Hopefully we have Mike back next week.